Okay, so I'm going to start by doing a little sketch of the two main characters in 1 Year at ELLSMERE. So whenever I'm drawing a person, I always start with an oval for their head, and then I drop in my construction lines to help me line up the features on the face, so like the nose and the mouth and the eyes. There are some very talented, very skilled artists out there that don't need to do this step. They don't need construction lines, but I am not one of those people. I definitely need construction lines. So this is June. She is the main character in 1 Year at ELLSMERE, and she is a scholarship student who wins a scholarship to this amazing, prestigious, all-girls boarding school. And she goes to ELLSMERE thinking she's going to have this amazing educational experience. She's going to have this amazing experience, and unfortunately for her, things don't quite work out that way. So I remember, as I mentioned, 1 Year at ELLSMERE is an updated version of an older graphic novel that I wrote and drew about 10 years ago. And I remember at the time, I really wanted to design June in a way that was different from a lot of the women that I saw in comics, a lot of the ways that I saw women drawn and portrayed in comics. I really wanted June to look young, to look like a girl, to look a little bit androgynous, a little bit like a tomboy, which is something that I really wanted when I was younger and was so desperate to read comics. I wanted to see different kinds of girls and women portrayed in comics rather than what was typically portrayed. So I designed June to look fairly androgynous, a little bit like a tomboy. And here is Cassie. So again, I'm going to draw my oval. Put in my construction lines. Cassie is basically the opposite of June. June is very focused on her education, very driven. In contrast, Cassie is not a good student. She's someone who's perhaps a little bit dreamy, a little bit weird and offbeat. She thinks like there's maybe supernatural creatures living in the forest beside the school that they both go to. But they meet and become very good friends over the course of the book. Between the two of them, I'm probably a little more similar to Cassie. I was always kind of this weird, dreamy preteen, very obsessed with like fantasy and mystical creatures and stuff like that. I love drawing Cassie's big poof of hair at the back. She just has this giant curly poof, which I think is really, really fun to draw. And she's wearing her school uniform, which is the uniform that all students at ELLSMERE wear. It's basically a sweater with a tie. So it's a lot of fun to draw. Oh, I'm using a Pilot mechanical colored pencils, and you can get these in all sorts of different colors. I really like using these light blue ones because it basically means when after you ink your drawing, so you finish it, and you scan it into the computer, the blue is light enough that it doesn't scan. So you don't have to worry about erasing, which is absolutely wonderful. That's a step you don't have to do. Now I actually pencil my comics entirely digitally on a computer using a Cintiq, but back when I did comics entirely traditionally, I would use these pencils. And now, once I'm done with my sketch and I'm happy with it, then I'm going to go and ink it and finish it. So I ink using a brush. And I dip my brush into this little pot of ink that I have. And then I very carefully go back and trace over top my messy blue lines. I'm a very messy penciler. Like when I put down my pencil lines, They're kind of all over the place. There's lots of, they're not neat and tidy. There's lots of, you know, random lines just kind of like scattered throughout. And that's fine. It's fine to be messy. It's fine to use whatever tool, whatever art tool really works for you. I remember for me, one of the reasons that I started inking with a brush, like I'm doing here, is because the cartoonist Jeff Smith, who is the creator of Bone, this amazing comic that I discovered pretty early on and was super into for a really long time, he talked about inking with a brush. So I decided, since I loved this comic and really wanted to do comics that looked like Bone, I would also start inking with a brush. And that's actually one of the reasons that I really love talking about my art tools and what I use to make comics, because I remember being a young struggling artist and trying to find my way and trying to figure out comics and how to draw. And yeah, having Jeff Smith talk about his tools and then trying to ink in the way he did, that was a very important and a very big step for me. So I'm always happy to talk about my tools. So yeah, I've used brushes for all my books, I think, all of my published graphic novels. And even though now I pencil on a computer, I still ink traditionally. So even though my pencils are done on the Cintiq on a computer, I still use this method for finishing the artwork and getting like a nice ink line. And the reason that I do that is this is my favorite part of the process. This is the part of making comics that I love the most. I find inking traditionally to just be like very soothing, and I just kind of like let my mind go and let the brush kind of like move across the page. I really enjoy this part of the process. And sometimes people ask me like, how do I get my lines so clean? How do I like pick the line to trace in the midst of these like messy pencil lines? And unfortunately the answer to that is practice. It's just a lot of tracing over artwork again and again, trying new methods, messing up, making mistakes. I've done in my, my many years of drawing comics, I have drawn so many pages and I've made many, many mistakes while drawing those pages, and that's fine. It's fine to make mistakes and learn and move on from there. Yeah, I love this part of the process. It's like all the hard work is done. I can just enjoy this feeling of watching the ink move across the page and hopefully not smudging it like I just did there. That is the difficult part of working with real media, with live media, as opposed to computers. Sometimes you get a little too eager and you smush your hand onto the wet ink and everything goes everywhere. And that is what cleaning up in Photoshop is for. So yeah, oh yeah, and my favorite part of drawing Cassie is to just like draw her giant pile of curls, just using like little squiggly lines. It's so fun. And I like doing these little like hatching marks on a character's cheek. Just kind of makes them look a little bit more expressive. It's just a way to kind of like make their face pop and make them look more appealing. And then once I'm done that part, I'll get one of my pens and trace June's glasses here. Just drawing something that this exact, like drawing a circle, requires like a steadier hand than what I can do with the brush. So I usually do that with a pen. I feel like June's glasses like get larger over the course of the book. I don't know, maybe people can tell me if that's the case. Yeah, so I just add little details like shading under their chins. Cassie's got little freckles. She's got those redhead jeans. And then I'm gonna shade in June's hair because she has black hair in the book. So I like adding, or not adding, but like leaving a little part of the hair white if the hair is dark. So that adds like a bit of a shine to the hair, a highlight, if you will. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There they are. And yeah, here are the tools that I used. The Pilot mechanical pencil. The kind of brush that I use is a Raphael Klinsky size 1. It's a watercolor brush. And I also sometimes use these light blue coal erase pencils. These are pencils that I started using when I was in college, and I really like them. So yeah, that's pretty much it.